Hey, hello there. How lovely of you to join me in my little Barcelona residency. I can see there's a few of you there. This is a brand new platform for me. This is all a bit experimental this evening. So if you're there and if you can see me, I'd really appreciate a little comment just to say hello, just to let me know that you're there, that you can hear me, that I'm coming in loud and clear. I should be able to see the comments pop up on the screen. Excellent. Hello, Antoinetta. How nice to see you. I've got a thumbs up so I can see your name. There's Montana. Great. Hi, Kate. Hi, Susanna. Oh, this is really nice. I've been a little bit nervous about this because it's a really nice platform. Hey, John. I didn't know if it would work. Don't know why it wouldn't work. Just, the unknown. We always fear the unknown, don't we? And so I just wanted to give it a spin. Hi, Julie. Hi, Laura. How nice of you to be here. Yeah. Before I tell you what this is all about, let me just warn you. I'm looking after my neighbour's cat, and she's quite a character. And I've been looking after her for 3 days. I thought that, when she came into a new home, she'd be very shy and timid and, a bit unhappy. But she just instantly she came to life. She's become very good friends of mine, and she's not shy. She's definitely not a scaredy cat. But I couldn't believe how kind of strong she is. I did some hoovering yesterday, some vacuuming, if you prefer. And my vacuum cleaner is one hell of a sucker, very noisy. She was completely unfazed, didn't care, not one bit. But then, as soon as I start to move my furniture a little bit, as I do before these lives, before webinars, just move that out the table. Wow, she can't handle it. She's freaking out. I don't know what it is. She doesn't like. I do dogs. I don't know cats. I don't understand cats. I don't pretend to understand dogs either. But this cat does not like this rearrangement. But just a little while ago, this is what she was doing. She was sort of kind of sunbathing underneath my lamp, and now she's hiding underneath my bed. So maybe she'll pop up and say hello later. I don't know. We'll find out. So yes, I think you all know me. If just in case you don't, my name's Jamie Keddie. I'm a teacher trainer. I'm a storyteller. I'm based in Barcelona. I have a website called LessonStream, and I've been meaning to do these live streams, not just for months, but possibly for years. The possibilities that are offered to us by platforms like this and broadcasting to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So the idea is that this is the first of many. I've got some really good ideas lined up. I've got a couple of students who have agreed to doing live online classes. So I'll meet with my students, maybe one-to-one, and we'll do some LessonStream activities with them. That could be quite good fun. They're quite fun people to work with. And what we're doing today is, well, it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I got memories that pop up on your iPhone if you're an iPhone person, photographs from years before. And it was a photograph from a conference in Croatia from exactly 10 years ago, which I was doing a talk titled Taking Video Apart. And I thought, you know what? I loved that talk. One of my favorite talks. I worked at it so hard. It developed over a number of years. And the thing about talks is after they kind of reach some sort of expiry, we just bin them. So I thought, well, why not revive my talks so that I can stream them, and then the streams will get recorded and I can upload them onto my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hello. So that's the idea, maybe weekly or bi-monthly streams just like this. And importantly, I'd like to open them up for everybody because we've got the LessonStream membership, which is where you access all the lesson plans and the courses and the fishbowl. But this is going to be for everybody. So what about this talk then? Does anybody remember this talk? I wonder if anybody who's present right here, right now, ever took part in this talk. I call it a talk, but in fact, I mean, really, it was a workshop. It was a workshop that lasted 90 minutes. And the idea here is that, well, we take this one single video and don't say anything. But if you think you know this video, which is titled Mr. W, and don't peek, no peeking. If you think you know it, if you've seen it before, and I'm sure many of you have, just say yes in the chat. Yes. If you don't know this video, this Mr. W video, this mystery video, just say no, so I can see who knows it and who doesn't. Because this is a video that has fascinated me for years. I've really, really enjoyed working with it. I think if I had to say, it would probably be in my top 10 videos, my top 10 pieces of teaching material, possibly even my top three pieces of teaching material ever. So, wow, I'm just looking at you. And so Nigel remembers Mr. W, so that means, Nigel, that you probably do, but most of you know. That's interesting. Well, if you don't know this, you really are in for a treat. This is an absolutely fantastic video, one that kind of changed my teaching, certainly gave rise to a lot of different techniques. And what we're going to do in this session, taking video apart, just as it sounds, we're going to take our spanners, and we're going to take this one video apart and look at the different components in isolation, and we're going to move through them, and each time we look at a different component, we're going to explore different teaching possibilities and techniques for each one. And a lot of these techniques that are going to come out of this talk are kind of LessonStream standards, you know, the story-based techniques that we use in LessonStream. So that's it, really. So let me show you what the talk looks like. This is what it looks like. It's in 8 parts. 8 parts there, and the video and the transcript, isolated audio, stills, video telling, whole video connections, and silent viewing, and we'll end with a conclusion. But this is very, very practical. As I mentioned, we're using one single video, and we're going to look at, I don't know, 10 different possible ways to use it in the classroom. One video, 10 ways to use it. Imagine that. Can you imagine that? So let's get started with maybe this idea, which is called the video and you. And if some of you, possible that some of you are in the LessonStream membership and have taken part in the story course. So I wonder if this means anything to you, this idea of the eternal triangle. The eternal triangle it's not an original term, of course, or a phrase, but it was Rod Blytho that used it for quite an influential paper that he wrote in 1989, perhaps. He wrote this just as we kind of entered into the communicative approach. And the eternal triangle that Rod was speaking about is the triangle between the teacher, the materials, coursebook materials then, and the students. And that's why I've used a triangle to represent this, because I think this is something that's really, really, it's overlooked so often. The idea that if you're choosing a piece of, let's say, authentic material for the classroom, you cannot just go in and throw it at your students. You've got to explore in your own mind and your own experience, why have you chosen it? And once you know why you've chosen it, you've got to tell your students the story of how you found it or how it found you. I say a story, it could be a 30-second description, but maybe more importantly, you've got to tell them maybe why it's meaningful to you. And I've already told you what this video means to me. I've told you that it is my top 3 pieces of classroom teaching material. So am I right in suspecting that in doing that, you're possibly more engaged in this talk? You want to know more. And that's a very, very simple idea, but it's the one I wanted to start with because in my mind, it's so often forgotten. It's so often neglected. I see teachers do something. They go into the classroom and say, right, students, I'm going to show you a video. Watch this video. They'll press play. Then they'll press pause. Then they'll say to students, I want you to guess what happens next. This is a prediction idea. Get into groups. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute. Why have you chosen this video? Contextualize this video for us. Tell us how you found it, how it found you. Tell us, for example, you've had a discussion with your wife or your partner, or your girlfriend. You think it's a really funny video, but she or he thinks it's a really stupid video. I'm going to show it to you, students. I wonder what you think. That's a real invitation to strengthen bonds between yourself and your students and the material. This is this idea that I love to play with, just as Rod Blythe loved to play with this in his article. So that was quite a simple idea, wasn't it? Let's move on to number 2, which is the transcript. Now, let me tell you my story here. And my story is quite a simple one. Some of you may know my story, some of you not, but I'll tell it to you. It goes like this. I think I was always misunderstood. People just didn't seem to like me. I think I annoyed them. I got on their I got on their nerves, I should have said. I don't know why. That's just the way it was. Maybe I was too intense. Maybe I came on too strong. I don't know. I really can't say. Yep, it was lonely, really lonely. But you get used to it after a while. And then one day, everything changed. Somebody finally accepted me for what I am. And now, since I got this job, my life has been completely different. When I did this talk at conferences, and a few times when I've used this video in the classroom, that's how I start. I start with these words. I tell people, just as I told you, that this is my story, which is slightly confusing. When you tell people you're going to tell them your story, this is not what they expect to hear. And what I love about this text, which, as you can probably guess, comes from the video, as you've just seen, it is in fact a video transcript. It belongs to a mystery character that we're going to call Mr. W. What I love about this story is that when you isolate it from the video like this, it could be anybody's story. I mean, who has never felt misunderstood? Who has never felt like an outsider? Who has never questioned, what's my problem? Am I coming on too strong? Am I a bit too intense? I would say that every human being in the planet has considered this. But, this is what makes it such a great text. And this, when I said that this is one of my favorite videos to use in the classroom, maybe my top 3 pieces of favorite material, I would say this is one of my top 3 favorite texts. And the text comes straight from a video. Now, let me just mention something important here. On one of the activities that you could use, and the one that I'm just going to describe, you have not told your students where this text comes from. You just give them this text on paper or on screen, or read it to them in the way that I've just done to you, and then give it to them so they hear it first, they see it second. And you ask students to read this text and become aware of the questions that they ask as they do so, because it's a very ambiguous text. Would you agree? So I wonder what kind of questions come to your mind as you read this text, assuming you don't know where it came from, assuming you don't know the story. What sort of questions do you form? And please feel free just to type them in and return. I mean, there's some very, very obvious ones, aren't there? I suppose there's one question we could say using whose. Whose words are these? Or who said this? Whose story is this? Different ways to kind of formulate the same question. Who was the text written by? Well, that's an interesting question. What question, Lilith? Because in fact, in the story, these words were never written. This is a spoken text. If anybody wrote these words, it would have been me when I transcribed them, or it would have been the person that created the video when they created a script. But in this story, this is a monologue. These are spoken words. So what has happened to this poor guy? It's a good story, this, isn't it? Because it's kind of like a skeleton, but it's also got a very simple structure, almost two-part. It's got a problem, it's got a solution, and it's got this key line. And then one day, everything changed. That's a great question, Maya. Who is he talking to, or who is she talking to? What sort of job is it? I think you know it's a he, actually, because I called the mystery character Mr. W. Who is the speaker? Lilith's reformulated. Yes, and by the way, Lilith, you didn't know, did you, that this text had been written? So it was a perfectly good question before, and I like that question because it lets me work with it. Why were you too intense and strong? What did this person do to get on people's nerves? Why was he so intense? What did he do to come on too strong? These are great questions, And some other questions, I've made a little note here. What is his name and where is he from? Yeah, what did he do to annoy people? What did he do to get on people's nerves, and why did he do those things? Importantly, who accepted him for what he was, and what is his new job? And these are some key questions you can encourage your students to write, or your students to ask. Once your students have done this, maybe in pairs or maybe in little groups, you can collate those questions, pull them, write the best ones on the board. If some of the questions I've just read to you are not there included, you can add them yourselves. Now, the next part I quite like, because students have been asking these questions, and then you say to them, okay, what I'd like you to do is use your imaginations, and there are no right or wrong answers here. Just use your imaginations to invent answers to your own questions in any way you like. You see? So in doing that, when students are working together in groups still, they've already asked these questions. Now they're using their imaginations to invent answers to them in any way they like. What they're actually doing here is writing a story, or creating a story, or building a story. And that's what this is all about. You're really asking students to create a story without asking them to do so directly. And what I like doing is a very standard way of doing things. Once students have done this in small groups, you can say, okay, now you've created a story. We're going to have a spokesperson from each group to share their story with the rest of the class. Importantly, your story should include 3 key pieces of information. Who is the mystery person, and what did he do to get on people's nerves? Who finally accepted him for what he was, and what is his new job? And really, those are the main questions. Give each group some time to prepare, and they can do this collaboratively. Time to prepare their story. You can't just do it on the spot. Once they know the task, once they know they have a speaking task, give them some time to prepare, and then they can do it presentation style or classroom storytelling style. How does that sound? Is everybody happy? So let's move on to number 3, part 3. I wonder if you can hear the woos outside. That's one of the busiest streets in Barcelona, and there's lots of sirens going past, but maybe you can't. Maybe it's not being picked up in my microphone. So component number 3 is isolated audio. Isolated audio. And this is maybe something you've done before. Is this possible? You play a video so that your students can hear it, but you could hear the sirens, could you, Lilith? So students can hear the video, but they can't see it. And you ask them questions which require them to speculate about the bigger picture. I'm going to play the video for you. So you've already seen the text. You've heard me read the text to you aloud. Now what you're going to do is hear the text, or rather I should say, hear the isolated video. So you're going to hear Mr. W's spoken words, and in doing so, you'll get some more information about who he is. But here's your task. I don't want you to listen to his words. I want you to listen to things you hear in the background and make a note. You can make written notes if you like with a pen, or just make a mental note if you prefer. So a note of all the things you hear or think you hear. All right? How does that sound?
I think I was always misunderstood. People just didn't seem to like me. I think I annoyed them. I got on their nerves. I don't know why. That's just the way it was. Yeah. Maybe I was too intense. Maybe I came on too strong. I don't know. I really can't say. Yeah, it was lonely. Really lonely. But you get used to it after a while. And then, one day, everything changed. Somebody finally accepted me for what I am. Since I've got this job, life is completely different. I finally feel useful, good at something.
So, what did you hear, or what do you think you heard? Try and put them into words. If you can't communicate them in English, communicate them in your first language, which is something I would always let my students do, although I'm sure you can. So, Susanna heard the sound of glass breaking, and that's an interesting one. Music, a sad, deep voice. I'm going to just go. Sounded like Julie says sounded like he was in a restaurant. What made you say that, Julie? That's very interesting. Mysterious crashing noises in the background, something falling to the floor or falling to the ground and breaking, creaking of a chair, piano playing, a door closing. Now, you are all expert users of English, and so you don't have any problem expressing these ideas. But we know, don't we, as teachers, that our students will. It's not that they have any problems getting the ideas. It's just that they have problems expressing them in English. And that's why I don't have a problem saying, okay, if you can't do it in English, fall back on your first language. Then we can write it on the board, and maybe the teacher, you can give them the equivalents, translate it. But this is what we're doing here is we're pulling the language from the students, and there's lots to work with. If I go back to the suggestion that Susanna made, she said the sound of glass breaking. And one student I had once said that he heard broken glass, which is, you can see exactly what the student's trying to say, can't you? Broken glass. But it's not quite right, is it? Because broken glass doesn't make a sound, unless, of course, you stand on it. Glass breaking is what the student's wanting here. So there's actually a language point emerging from what you've said. Something falling, something creaking, a piano playing, a door closing, somebody opening a bottle of wine. So there's a language point. This is noun phrases. Where there's something happening. So when students say a broken glass, you reformulate that and give them a glass breaking. There's lots of different ways to reformulate or offer upgrades. Some teachers say, for example, a student once said or could say somebody walking, which is absolutely fine, isn't it? But you could suggest footsteps. So rather than somebody walking, one word, footsteps, which might be a word that your students don't have. So you're offering them an upgrade. And this is what the teacher's job is. Now, this is the language pooling way. And this is much more unpredictable. And what's much simpler is maybe the language pushing way. So you let students hear it, and then you give them a sort of choice of all the things. The teacher, as a materials writer, as a lesson planner, you're just working with the video, you're creating a number of phrases, noun phrases, some of these things which are actually in the video, some of them which are not. And students have just got to listen carefully and decide which ones are there and which ones are not. A cat meowing. Did you hear a cat meowing? If you did, it was mine, because there's no cat in the video. A woman screaming, a door slamming, a bed creaking. Somebody already used that word, creaking, someone laughing, a child crying, slow melancholic music, a glass smashing, a German accent, a bird tweeting. You have control of the language you want to include. I mean, there is no bird tweeting that I'm aware of, no cat meowing, no dog barking. I just put them in to demonstrate this could be a way for you to introduce new language if you want to do so. So that really is all I want to say about this component of the video, which is isolated audio. And I'm keeping my eye on the questions here, the comments. So let's move on. The next part is stills. You see what's happening here, you know? Let me just take a moment for a parenthesis moment. What so often happens in my experience with teachers who work with video, or indeed any material, is they find a video, they've got their grammar goggles on. Do you know what grammar goggles are? Grammar goggles are, it's a condition that language teachers suffer from. I guess we could also call it grammar blindness, like snow blindness. Snow blindness does not mean you cannot see the snow. It means that all you can see is snow. When you're skiing, it's just so white you can't see anything else. Similarly, grammar blindness is when all you can see is grammar. So if teachers are working with a video and I'm giving them a task, maybe what would you do with this video? And within 30 seconds say, I would use this video to teach modal auxiliary verbs of deduction. And whenever I hear that, I always die inside just a little bit, because put the language to the side. The language will come. We've had some language points so far. We've had these noun phrases. We've had a lovely writing activity, a story building activity. We see a lovely text. There wasn't a specific language point there, although there could have been. There was lots and lots of adverbs, but you will not find it in the first 30 seconds. You've got to explore the video first. Think about the different possible ways of interacting with it, or getting your students to interact with it. Take off those grammar goggles. Become aware of that grammar blindness. Send the grammar to the back of the classroom. Look for interactivity, look for language, look for communication. And then, if it's a language point you're wanting, that might come later. This is maybe a different way to doing things than you might be used to. I know a lot of teachers will need a video to teach X, Y, or Z. So this is a slightly different way, but it's still a very valuable way, because I know a lot of teachers find videos, they think, I want to use this video in the classroom. How do I do it? Right. You've heard Mr. W. Let's see him now. This is a still from the video, and Mr. W in the video looks like this. So I wonder now if any of you are thinking, yes, I recognize that guy, this mystery character, and I know who he is. If you're thinking that, shh. And I have found that this single image can lead to I remember using this image for about 20 minutes of pure classroom discussion, coming from teacher questions to student curiosity, ideas and answers, So, questions like, how old do you think he is? How old do you think he is? It's funny when you ask that question, students always say things like 31 or 33. Very rarely, if ever, do they say in his early 30s or in his mid 30s or in his late 20s or 30 something, which is some great language to teach, isn't it? In his early 30s, in his 30s, 30 something. Have you ever seen this man before, or have you ever seen anyone like him before? You know that he does things to get on people's nerves. What do you think he does? What kind of thing do you think this man does to get on people's nerves? I mean, this is an invitation for you to just judge him. You've heard his words. He told you he gets on people's nerves. What do you think he does? Where do you think he's from? Where do you think he's from? You know, you've heard his accent, so you're probably going to say French, but bear in mind that we're looking maybe at 10 different techniques here, which could be 10 different activities here. So maybe you're using this as an introduction to the video. Perhaps students have not heard the isolated audio at this stage here. It's completely up to you, the teacher. You are the master of the material. Do you think he's married, single, or divorced? Nigel's spotted an ancient phone. That's right, isn't it? Do you think that's functioning? Do you think it gets used? Or is it just there as an ornament, an antique? I wonder. I wonder if your students have ever seen one of those before. What do you think he does for a living? In other words, what do you think his job is? And what sort of person do you think he is? Your answers here are going to be very much informed or influenced by the fact that you've already heard the isolated audio. But I'll just mention it again because it's worth saying that students don't have to have heard it. And I would say if you're going to introduce the video in this way, it's probably best if this is your very starting point here, if you introduce him with this still before students hear him. And we're just going through these different activities and techniques one at a time. That's interesting, Alfredo, speculating that perhaps he's Belgian. Is that because of the accent, or is that because of the way he looks, Alfredo? I'm interested to know. I've prepared a number of questions here. The questions all have something in common. Let me read them to you again. How old do you think he is? Where do you think he's from? Do you think he's married, single, or divorced? What do you think he does for a living? What sort of person do you think he is? What do these questions have in common? How old do you think he is? Where do you think he's from? Do you think he's married, single, or divorced? What do you think he does for a living? What sort of person do you think he is? What do these 5 questions have in common? I think I know you know, or I think you maybe know, or I know you know. I can't think I know you know about personal details. That's funny because I just asked you a moment ago to take off your grammar goggles. I guess that right now I'm asking you to put them back on. More than that, Maya, we're looking for 3 words. Open answers. Some of them are open, some of them are closed. How old do you think he is an open answer. Where do you think he's from is an open answer. Do you think he's married, single, divorced is actually a closed answer. We often think of closed answers being yes or no, but this one is a 3-way choice. What do you think he does for a living? What sort of person do you think he is? They're not all WH questions. They have 3 words in common. Maya almost got it. Do you think? All 5 of my questions include this little phrase, do you think, which is a really important marker. What it says is, well, you don't know. I'm inviting you to guess. This is an invitation for you to use your imagination. So don't worry if you don't know, just try and guess. That's what it's all about. The grammar of do you know questions can be quite complex. So with upper level students, you could ask these questions, ask them 3 times each, discuss them, write the answers on the board, 30 something, Belgium, married, an office worker, a nice man. And then students have got to try and restructure or reconstruct, I should say, all 5 questions with the do you think embedded within it, which makes the grammar, as we said, quite tricky, but they can do it. If they're not upper level students, you can do it a different way. You could say, how old is he? Do you think? So you can tag on those 3 words at the end. Where do you think where is he from, do you think? Is he married, single, or divorced? What do you think? What does he do for a living? What do you think? What sort of person is he, do you think? So it's still there, that invitation's still there, and it's a very important way to do things, I would say. What do you think? Do you agree? Would you agree? Are you agree? As a lot of my Spanish students have said, are you agree? Yes, I am agree. Right. Anything to say or ask? Eyes on the comments. Is that the postman who tried to tell you some forbidden substances? Good memory. One of my favorite stories about the postman, my Barcelona postman, who once tried to sell me drugs. Spoiler alert, it was a bit of a misunderstanding, but good memory you have there. And no, that's not him. But let's move on to part 5, which is video telling. Oops. Some of you may know this book. Some of you may have this book. It's a book called Video Telling that it was published in 2018. And video telling is a technique that I'm a big fan of. As simple a definition as I can give you is putting videos into words. In my mind, this is the most purely communicative way to use video. Think about how human beings interact with video. You know, we tell people about them. We say, God, have you seen that advert? Did you see that shocking piece of news footage? Did you see that fantastic goal? You know, you can imagine your daughter telling you about how polar bears hunt for seals, something that she saw in a nature documentary, or your dad, my dad, telling me about his favorite comedy sketch from Monty Python. This is what I refer to as video telling. And video telling is something that can be done by the teacher-led video telling. Ultimately, it's something that can be done by the students to choose a video based on a genre and to video tell it. So they tell their peers about it, their classmates about it. They don't let them see it. They withhold the video, and that comes at the end. So let me just, some little bit of video telling here. I'm going to use this mystery video for some video telling. You know that the name of the character, the mysterious character, is Mr. W. Mr. W is a mysterious character with, let's say, an appetite for mischief. And yes, he can be quite annoying sometimes. I don't think it's his intention to be annoying, but he can be a bit intense, and he certainly does get on people's nerves at times. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of things that he might do to get on people's nerves. All right. Okay. Here's the first thing. Imagine this. Mr. W is in the street, and walking towards him, there is a man, and the man is wearing a hat. Not just a hat. He's not naked apart from his hat. He's wearing clothes as well, but he's also wearing a hat. Mr. W thinks this is a great opportunity to get on somebody's nerves. What do you think he does? So Mr. W is in the street, walking towards him. There's a man fully clothed, fully dressed, wearing a hat. Mr. W thinks this is a great opportunity to get on somebody's nerves. What do you think he does? What do you think he does? My eyes are on your comments. So Lilith says he steals the man's hat. That's such a great guess, Lilith. That would be really annoying, wouldn't it? That would really get on your nerves. He steals the man's hat. Let me tell you what he does. He pushes the man's hat off, or he hits the man's hat off, or he knocks the man's hat off. That's exactly what he does. Nigel has reformulated it for me. He knocks the man's hat off, or he knocks the bloke's hat off. Now, how do you think this man reacts? What does this man do? So imagine that. There you are in the street. Mr. W, you've just walked past him, and he knocks your hat off. It falls off your head, lands on the floor. How do you react? You're going to get a bit annoyed, aren't you? You're going to say, hey, what'd you do that for? Strangely, The man whose hat is knocked off just bends down, picks it up, puts it back on, almost as if Mr. W is not there. Okay, let me give you another example. Mr. W is standing on a balcony, and in his hands, he is holding, can you guess what he's holding? I once asked this question, and a student said, a baby. I went, what? And I was thinking about that time Michael Jackson was standing in a balcony holding his baby. Do you remember that? Got into a lot of trouble for that. I'm very happy to say that Mr. W is not holding a baby. He is, however, holding a flower pot. A flower pot. Now, in the street below, there are two ladies. I'm not going to call them old because that would be rude. What's that adjective that we use to describe old people that's not so rude? What is it again? It's, yes, that's right, elderly. So in the street below, there are two elderly women, two elderly ladies, if you prefer. Mr. W thinks this is a fantastic opportunity to get on somebody's nerves. What do you think he does? What do you think he does? There he is on the balcony, not holding a baby, holding a flower pot. Below him, two elderly ladies coming towards him, just about to pass underneath the balcony. What does Mr. W do here? Something quite dangerous, actually. You can guess. I know you can guess. Exactly. He lets go of the flower pot. He drops it. It falls to the street below, and it smashes right in front of these two elderly ladies. Poor ladies, they get such a fright, which is quite dangerous and irresponsible. I think you'd agree. And how do you think these two elderly ladies react? Do you think they report Mr. W to the police? I would. Okay, number 3. Mr. W is in a children's playground, and he's sitting on the end of a slide. He's sitting on the end of the slide, and a few meters in front of him, there's a little girl, and she's playing in the sand. She's playing in a sand pit. And it's kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a sand pit, but you know, some children's playgrounds have got sand all over to protect children in case they fall. That's the kind of children's playground we're in. So one of the little girls, she's a few meters in front of Mr. W, and she's playing in the sand. She's making sand castles. What do you think Mr. W does? Excellent opportunity to get on somebody's nerves. This little girl, a few meters in front of him, playing in the sand, making sand castles. Mr. W, sitting on the end of a slide, looks at her thinking, whoa, excellent opportunity to get on somebody's nerves. What do you think he does? I'm going to tell you. He picks up a handful of sand. He crushes her sandcastle, says Lilith. That would be really annoying. On a different day, that's exactly the sort of thing he might do. But on this day, he picks up a handful of sand and he throws it in the little girl's face. Whoa, how do you think the little girl reacts? What does her mother do? You might be surprised when you see the video. And that's exactly what we're going to move on to right now. That was video telling. Am I going out of focus here? Sorry about that. You just saw my nose. Let me play for you the first part of the mystery video. Just before I do, because this is what we're looking at here, is let's call it whole video. And although we're calling this whole video, I'm actually going to play it in 2 parts. I'm going to play the first part for you, then I'm going to ask you a prediction question, and then I'm going to play the second part for you. This is really important, actually. I'm showing you all these different techniques. What they have in common is you're trying to get your students to interact with the video. You're getting them very curious. You're using it to teach language or to get language from your students. But what you should not do is use all of these techniques that I'm using with you, because you're much more patient than your students. By this stage, your students are going to go crazy. Show us the video, they're going to shout. So don't do that. I don't want you coming back to me saying my students had a mutiny and started to, hit me with rulers and throw pencils at me. I don't want to hear that, all right? Sorry, just before I play, another great question to ask here is about genre. Ask your students to predict what kind of video do you think you're going to see. Is it, for example, a comedy sketch, a short film, a children's cartoon, an advertisement? Is it a clip from a documentary? This is a very key question. We've withheld so much information here. It'd be really interesting to find out what your students have got to think at this stage. Okay, so Mr. W, part 1.
I think I was always misunderstood. People just didn't seem to like me. I think I annoyed them. I got on their nerves. I don't know why. That's just the way it was. Yeah. Maybe I was too intense. Maybe I came on too strong. I don't know. I really can't say. Yeah, it was lonely. Really lonely. But you get used to it after a while.
And I'm back in focus. So Julie's figured it out. Fantastic. And it's at this stage, I mean, again, this could be your way in. This could be the first meeting that students have with Mr. W. What I would probably do before this, maybe show them the still of Mr. W, ask those questions, and then maybe show them the first part of this video. It's really up to you. You don't want to prolong the curiosity for too long, is the point I'm trying to make. But at this stage, students have been given half of the video. Then it's 20 questions. Can students work out? They've seen the things that Mr. W does to get in people's nerves. Can they now work out what his new job is? They've got 20 questions for their teacher, and this can be a lot of fun. So Liam has also worked it out. Interesting. So this is using whole video. It's a very standard way to do things. It's kind of a prediction. What happens next is just one of many type of prediction questions. This is, what do you think his new job is? And some of you worked it out. Very clever. Lilith, I think, has worked it out too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Mr. W again by playing the second part of the video. Okay, here we go, Mr. W part 2.
But you get used to it after a while. And then one day, everything changed. Somebody finally accepted me for what I am. Since I've got this job, life is completely different. I finally feel useful, good at something.
What do you think of that then? Did you like that? Did you get it, importantly? Because it's really interesting. When I first saw this advertisement, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And as teachers, this is really important to realize, because my experience of using this video, and I've used it many, many times, is that 10% of people don't get it. So I wonder if you are one of those 10%. What you saw, or what you think you saw, is this man, this mysterious character, Mr. W, doing these terrible, annoying things. But how did people react? Nobody seemed to care. That terrible thing he did to that woman in the street, did she slap him? No, she didn't. She behaved almost as if he wasn't there, because Mr. W is not a person. What you saw is a personification of the wind. That was who Mr. W is. And some of you, I know that most of you got it, but I can't assume you all did. Some of you, like me, may not have got it. Let me show you another depiction of Mr. W. Here he is right here. That's Mr. W on the left. We love to personify the weather elements, don't we? The sun is personified. There's the wind being personified, Mr. W, in the clouds. And so Marta is being so brave here and honest by admitting that she was one of the 10%. You were just like me, Marta. One of my secrets to teaching is I just pretend everybody's me, and I never get it. At school, they used to call me Jamie Dinny Get It Keddie. Dinny Get It is Scottish for don't get it. Jamie Dinny Get It Keddie. So when I'm teaching, I just pretend that nobody gets it. That's my only secret as a teacher. One thing I would say here is that I once showed the video, Mr. W video, at a conference in a country that, let's say, has a slightly conservative leaning, and I got into huge trouble because of that very first scene when he pulls that woman's skirt up. 10 years ago, I was playing it. It never occurred to me that there was something, maybe, obviously I know there's something wrong with pulling up skirts of strangers, but we know we know at the end it's all very innocent. So it never occurred to me this might be something for me to deal with. And when I showed this video in a certain country, I got into big trouble. The audience were really, really shocked. I got into big trouble with my sponsor. It was a very, very important lesson learned. I would say use it with extreme caution. I would take out a moment just to talk to your students. You're going to see this. You're going to see this person do something quite shocking, something terrible, something which is not funny at all. You'll find later on it's all quite innocent, but you might want to deal with that. And in the lesson plan, which has been shared in the LessonStream membership, I've included a few ideas for doing such a thing. Okay, let me just take a moment because we've got two more. We've got a couple more things to look at, and then we'll be finishing. We'll be moving on through them quite quickly, but just a little word here about LessonStream, if you'll permit me to do so, because LessonStream is the idea. It's all about storytelling and stories. The idea that stories are your best lesson plan. Some of you are members, I know that. Some of you are not. If you ever want to join, it'd be lovely to have you. If you go to LessonStream, if you've never done so already, there's a free lesson plan waiting for you. And if you subscribe, you'll also get the LessonStream post every now and then. I send out storytelling ideas to teachers. Also, here is the LessonStream membership. And if you join the LessonStream membership, you get access to the lesson plan library. There are currently 82 story-based lesson plans with a new one added most weeks. The most two recent additions are these ones, Mr. W and Always Misunderstood. But you get instant access to all of them. You also get access to the community, which is called the Fishbowl. And importantly, you get access to the LessonStream story course, which is a place for you to learn to use story and storytelling to engage your students and make them love your lessons even more, and also develop your storytelling skills and confidence. The current price is $8.99 per month or $89.90 per year, but this price will be going up. But the good thing is, if you're already a member, the price stays the same for you forever. So even if I put the price up in the future, it stays the same for you. So if you're going to join, please make sure you do so before the price goes up. That way you get this current price forever. All right, that's all I'm going to say about it. But it would be lovely to have you in the community. So if you're ever thinking of joining, make sure you do it soon. All right. Okay, let's get on with the next part. And the next part is about connections. Oh, this is so good. This is my favorite part. It's Lilith. It'd be lovely to have you. And there's a nice message Lilith's just sent that it'd be lovely to have you in the community. I know we've crossed paths a few times, so I know there's some members here, so they could tell you how much we enjoy it and how much we are a lovely community together. So connections, let me explain. What I have here for you is another video, a second video. It's also another advertisement, and it has a lot in common with Mr. W. A lot in common with Mr. W. I wonder, and one of the ways I set this up, and this is in the lesson plan, is to ask students, what is the nature of this second video? And the key phrase here is that it is the opposite. This second video that I have, which is also an advertisement, which has a lot in common with Mr. W, is the opposite. How could this be? Invite your students to speculate, ask you a few questions if they need to clarify these ideas. Then you can go on with the explanation. Right, let me explain. This is all about a switch to renewable energies. It's all about a switch to renewable energies. Mr. W found his new job turning windmills. And for Mr. W, this means a change for the better, you know? At the beginning, he's misunderstood and jobless. At the end, he finds purpose and employment. For Mr. W, this is a happy ending. However, in the second advertisement, we meet some other characters who experience a change for the worse. At the beginning, they are happily employed, but at the end, they become redundant and jobless. This is a sad ending for these characters. Can anyone guess or suggest who these characters are? And this second advertisement is such an interesting advertisement. It just balances the Mr. W so well. And the task for students, once they've seen this second advertisement, which I'm still not showing you, but I will in a moment, is to revisit the original Mr. W text. That is the monologue, these words that you see right here. To revisit these words, to revisit this text, and to rework it. And they've got to rework it in any way they like, so that these words become the words of these new characters that Julie has suggested could be miners, maybe working underground, working for coal. That's such a good example, Julie. Paolo said fossil fuels, another awesome example. So Lilith's a bit lost, so I'm going to repeat the question because this is quite a conceptual, abstract task. Let me explain again. I have a second advertisement for you. It's also got something to do with renewable energies. The first was a story of success. This character, Mr. W, who started off unemployed, a moment of change, then one day everything changed, then he ended up employed. This was a story that worked out for Mr. W for the better. In the second advertisement, we start off with these characters who are employed. Everything's great. They've got a job. But then one day everything changes as a result of a move to renewable energies, and they find themselves redundant, jobless. For these new characters, this is not a happy ending. Julia suggested it might be miners. Paolo suggested it might be fossil fuels. Whatever it is, again, it's another personification of something which is representative or metaphorical or emblematic or iconic of fossil fuels. So then what you do is you give students this text a second again, you revisit them, you ask them to rework it or rewrite it in any way they like, so that this text, which used to belong to Mr. W, now belongs to these new characters. By this stage, your students have seen the advert, okay? You've not seen it, but by this stage, your students have seen it. A lump of coal is a great possibility. Let me show you one of the texts that came back from this activity from two of my own students from 10 whole years ago. This text came from Xavi and Raquel. People used to need me. They relied on me for so many reasons. I protected them against the cold in the winter, and I kept them cool in the summer. Yeah, those were very happy days, and I thought they would last forever. I thought I was irreplaceable, but you should never take success for granted, because then one day everything changed. That's the only key line they have to keep. People finally decided that I wasn't needed anymore. And now, well, that's a typo, I apologize. And now I seem to annoy them. I get on their nerves, another typo. This is the beginning of my end. Andrea, this is not plastic or milk bottles. Great idea. I see where you're going. Lilith, it's not books. You're about to find out. Your students have met these new characters, so this makes their task easier. For them, it was easier to write the text. You've not seen it, but I'm going to let you see the video now. And over the top of the video, you're going to hear the voice of Xavi, who wrote this text. So you're going to see the video, and you're going to also you're also going to hear Xavi's voice. All right. Are you ready here?
People used to need me. They relied on me for so many reasons. I protected them against the cold in winter, and I kept them cool in summer. Yeah, those were happy days. And I thought that they would last forever. I was irreplaceable. But you should never take success for granted. Because then, one day, everything changed. People finally decided that I wasn't needed anymore. And now I seem to annoy them. I get on their nerves. This is the beginning of my end.
So again, this made use of personification, didn't it? It took these cooling towers, these chimneys, which are representative of the coal industry, turned them into people. So it's got a lot in common with Mr. W, doesn't it? And I was really happy to make that connection between the two adverts and find this task, which is part of the lesson plan that I mentioned before, which is in the LessonStream membership. And finally, silent viewing or slideshows. This is about watching the videos. You can see it, but not hear it. And this is something that maybe you've done before. My preferred way of doing this is not necessarily to actually play the video, but to actually use screen capture to isolate stills from it so I can create a slideshow. I find it just gives a teacher so much control in having to play, pause, for example. It's what it's all about. So let me just show you something. This is a grammar activity. So if you do enjoy grammar, as I know some of you do, this is quite a simple way of doing it. Give students this little puzzle. They've got to do two things here. They've got to choose the right word. He kicks or punches a cardboard box onto the road. He drops a flower pot from a balcony. So they've got to choose the correct word or phrase and also put these sentences into the same order that they appear in the Mr. W advert. And then it's time for a game. And the game is, that's the answer there, is he about to or has he just? And you move through the slideshow of images. Students have got to work in groups or pairs and write down a full sentence for each one. He is about to pull a woman's skirt up. Very useful piece of language. He has just thrown sand in a little girl's face. So this is all about is about to, which is immediate future, or has just, immediate past, using the present perfect. And you can see here it's immediate past because the girl's actually got her hands on her faces because he's already thrown the sand. So this is open for debate, but there's always clues here. He has just messed up the woman's hair. You can see quite a funny hairstyle, isn't it? He has just dropped the flower pot because you can actually see it there in movement. Is he about to, or has he just? He hasn't yet, so he's just about to. He is about to, etc., etc., etc. And that really brings us to the end of the activity. Little conclusion here. The thought that I'd like you to go away with here, and I thank you for staying for this hour and 20 minutes. Future streams will be a bit shorter than this, but this one, there was a lot to go through. Teachers love video. It's true, isn't it? We love video. When I did this talk, which is titled Taking Video Apart, when I did it 10 years ago, I would ask teachers who uses video in the classroom. And even back then, it was still, in general, it was a minority. A lot of teachers weren't. Now, almost every teacher I know uses video in the classroom. The question is, why? Why do we feel the need to turn to sites like YouTube to find video content for the classroom? And I think the answer is quite simple. I think that students are human beings, and like all human beings, they need story. We need a constant supply of narrative. I've heard it said before that the human need for narrative is greater than the need for love. I don't know if it's true. It probably isn't, but I quite like it. And I think that this is why we love video, because the video it provides us with story. YouTube is a constant stream of bite-sized stories for the classroom, and that's why we're attracted to it. But there is a but here. If it's the story that we love, all too often, it's the story that we neglect. I see this so often, the teacher just using a video to introduce a topic. This is about getting into the video. It's about taking off our grammar goggles, becoming aware of grammar blindness, and working with the video, looking for ways to get students to work with it, interact with it, make it communicative, the language, the communication coming first, explore their ideas for the grammar second, because the grammar will always come, you see. Conversely, the last thing, the final idea I'd like to put to you, because, this image here, the idea is that we're not working with video on a screen. We're actually working with video in the minds of our students. And if you're working with 20 students, you're working with 20 different narratives. And that's the beauty of it. We might think we're all watching the same video, but we're all interacting with it in a very different way. The last thought here is, if you're wanting a video to introduce a topic, which is not really what this talk is about, but if that's what you're looking for the video for, and teachers do this a lot, maybe looking for video to introduce, for example, the subject of misunderstandings, my preferred way of doing it, and I would always encourage students to forget YouTube, forget video, go into your own mind and find a personal story or an anecdote and use that. You've always got anecdotes and experiences about misunderstandings. Become aware of them, exploit them, use them, because your own stories are incredibly valuable. Do not outsource the job to video. You are teachers, and all of these activities and techniques that we've been looking at, one thing that's really, really important is you have not just been getting the video to do the job. You, the teacher, have been an integral part of what it's all about. You are getting your students to interact with the video and do stuff, but you, the teacher, have been setting things up. You've not just been pressing play and sitting back. You've been doing stuff. You've been instructing. You've been storytelling. You've been in getting your students involved. And in the lesson plans, there's a lot of little excerpts of teacher talk, which are very important for doing so. You are an integral part of the video. And don't forget that. You are not technicians, you are storytellers. And the aim is to get your students to become storytellers, and we have to lead by example. And that takes us everything to the end. That brings us to the end, I should say. What happened to that piece of English? And I'd like to say a big thank you to you, because a lot of you stayed here for almost an hour and a half. Thank you so much for doing so. I'm honored that you should. If you're in the LessonStream membership, I'll see you in the fishbowl. If you're not, I'll see you in a Sunday post or in the LessonStream Facebook group. So thank you so much. If you've got any questions, please just ask away in the Facebook group or in the membership, or just reply to my emails. I'm always here. I'm always happy to help. I'm also on Instagram. You can find the Instagram LessonStream. Just LessonStream is the name of the Instagram account. Okay, so thank you all so much. I've got to go and see my neighbors now and take back my cat. Well, it's not my cat anymore, is it? So I'm a little bit sad. I'm actually going to miss her. And she's not made an appearance as I thought she would. Maybe she's still too freaked out by this change of furniture. So bye-bye now. Have a great rest of the evening. Thanks so much again, and take care.